Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
To my brother Riley for getting his pilot's license. Where the Riley?
Why do we have such fond memories of Far Cry 3? It was a smash hit when it came out in 2012. It was dubbed Skyrim with guns, which, yeah, really doesn't hold up, but that's one hell of an endorsement. Even today, the game retains a kind of legendary status within the community. People remember Voss as one of the best villains in video games. Many claim Far Cry 3 is still the best game in this series. Before I got the chance to replay the game, I just didn't share this level of admiration or have a strong sense of nostalgia for it. And because of that, I decided to replay Far Cry 3 in 2021 to figure out, was it really that good? The first 12 minutes of this video game represents one of the very best opening sequences that I can remember. You play as Jason Brody, an affluent white kid parading around the Rook Islands with his buddies. You're captured and held hostage by this unhinged slave trader named Voss. Luckily, you're with your brother Grant, who is in the military, so he's able to guide you out of the cage, give you basic stealth tips, grab some supplies, and head out of the camp. But just as you make it out, and just as you start to feel safe, you get to watch him die while you plug the bullet hole in his neck. Voss sends you off into the jungle, sicking his dogs, his guards, and his helicopter to chase you down. With no way to fight back, you're forced to kill an attacker and dodge gunfire before plunging into a river, barely scraping away with your life. This intro is different, guys. It's kind of perfect to me. It whacks you over the head with a very clear tone. Danger. You are not in control, and you are not safe. It puts Voss, who is such a force to be reckoned with, on a pedestal. It gives him a stage to deliver his insane monologue, which solidifies that danger further. He is in control, and you are not. It sets the stakes painfully high. You're a naive white kid who trembles at the sight of death, let alone killing another person. Your brother dies in your arms. And you are the one to save the rest of your friends? The weight of the world is on your shoulders. There's no happy ending in sight, and this place will do everything it can to try and stop you. This is the kind of energy that carries with you throughout the entire game. It would be easy for this feeling to wear off. This is a tight, linear sequence with pacing specifically designed to make you feel danger. Jason wakes up to a friendly face after the river, but any sense of normality is fleeting on this island, because the moment you step outside of a city, you could get ambushed by a patrol. You could get mauled by a tiger. This world does not want you to live, and that's baked into the systemic nature of Far Cry. If you get caught on fire, you're most likely dead. But also, fire spreads across land like it would in real life, and it engulfs entire buildings in flames. This game really has a figure-it-out mentality in a way that rewards you for being curious. After the first radio tower tutorial mission, you'll get a waypoint for the next story mission. In my game, I ran into a patrol just before a checkpoint, so opening fire attracted a ton of pirates to me. And during that fight, a pack of wild dogs roamed in and attacked me too. These emergent moments are what makes Far Cry so memorable. It feels like these events are my own, like I went through hell in the first few hours of the game before I unlocked that crazy scoped AR with extended mags. It's in all these ways and many more that Far Cry solidifies itself in one single word: danger. It's so dangerous, it makes me feel so uncomfortable, and it's brilliant for that. Far Cry 3 is a game about survival, but it's not a survival game. What I mean is, it's not stuffed with those mechanics we associate with the survival genre, things like thirst and hunger, inventory management, and weapon condition meters. And it's a much better game because it doesn't have those things. You gather plants for syringes, you hunt animals to craft upgrades, and you loot glowing objects for cash, but that's about the whole list of those kinds of things. I don't get forced into this homogenous soup of gameplay mechanics that send me into a pause menu. I don't worry about how much something weighs or whether I need to sleep in order to progress. Seeing my weapon break every 20 minutes just doesn't fit my definition of fun. Instead, this game uses a mix of unpredictability and intense narrative beats to deliver on that feeling of barely surviving. In 2021, this feels like a breath of fresh air to me. I feel like I'm surviving because I'm being hunted and I'm being forced to do things like dig bullets out of my arm with a knife or snap my thumb back into place. While Assassin's Creed had it first, Far Cry 3 took the idea of radio towers and made it infamous. Climbing up to a high point and watching a cutscene that uncovers your map became synonymous with Ubisoft because both series used this idea. The funny thing is though, I actually enjoyed this gameplay loop in Far Cry 3 for two reasons. The rewards are tangible and the benefits actually matter. Every radio tower unlocks at least one weapon for free. This basically undercuts the game's economy because guns are expensive to the point that it always makes sense to do the towers, but it also unlocks new activities and uncovers the map, which for me really ties into the game's survival theme. Because the world feels so dangerous, it makes me feel more comfortable to see the roads and know where enemy outposts are instead of just going in blind. You could also say that Far Cry 3 was the trendsetter for RPGification of the first-person shooter genre. It's probably the reason why it earned the Skyrim with guns tagline for injecting concepts like crafting, skills, and experience points into this kind of game. While I generally don't like how FPS games use these mechanics, Far Cry 3 does not overstay its welcome here. Crafting is so simple, it exists for very specific purposes and has direct impacts on gameplay. Syringes, for example, are super helpful for hunting and combat. Plants are abundant, they're everywhere, so I'm never going out of my way to find them. Collecting animal hides rewards you with tangible benefits, like being able to hold one more weapon at a time, which is great. One thing that doesn't hold up for me though is the crafting process. Games like Metro Exodus and The Last of Us Part 2 have your character pull out their backpack mid-gameplay to craft items instead of sending you into a pause menu. These ideas clearly came after Far Cry 3, so I'm not knocking the game for not innovating before other games did, but I couldn't help but wish that this game used those ideas because the idea fits Far Cry like a glove. I'm particularly impressed with skills. Where a lot of modern games have massive skill trees filled with 1% damage boosts and abilities that you should really have by default, Far Cry 3 feels concise and deliberate. When you're leveling up, you choose a skill point on something that you feel immediately. Chain takedowns, for example, let you handle groups of 2 enemies without breaking stealth. Plus, every time you choose a skill, you get a tattoo which represents that skill. It's a very narrative-forward way of representing progression that you see reflected on your character, on Jason, which grounds the whole idea of skill trees in a way that I appreciate. One thing I really don't think this game needs, though, is looting. For a guy that covered Fallout exclusively for years, I'm sure this is weird to hear, but I've become pretty anti-looting. It disrupts any sort of flow that I might have had with the game. In Far Cry 3, it just feels like busy work to me. You have a loot rucksack with limited space, so it really only serves as an obstacle in the crafting progression. To me, this is one area where the experience just feels dated. When I first picked up an AK-47, I was struck by how clean the gameplay felt. I don't know what it is, maybe because I'm playing in 1440p 60 FPS, but in the words of Todd Howard,
all of this just works.
Gunplay has a sort of quality to it that feels premium, like you might feel in a Call of Duty or Destiny game. Even now, I'm struggling to pinpoint exactly what it is, so I'll chalk it up to a general gun feel. The shooting, the reloading, the feedback, the sound, the variety in weapon types, I mean, it's all fantastic. Also, things like headshots actually kill enemies, unless there's a helmet. In general, bad guys die in just a few bullets like you would expect them to. For a world to feel truly dangerous, you have to be able to kill quickly and be killed quickly. I decided to play the game on hard, and yeah, I died more than a few times over my 15 hours. Far Cry has always championed the freedom of approach idea when it comes to combat. Thanks to predictable AI and fun physics systems, outposts feel like you're in the lab, like you're concocting the perfect solution to a problem. You have a ton of ingredients, different tools and weapons to mix and match, but the results depend entirely on what you put into it. For example, you can stroll in through the front gates and mow down pirates with a fully kitted LMG, or you can study your enemies and then set C4 charges to propel vehicles at just the right angle and just the right time to crush them. Or you can disable alarms and take down every single person without being seen or firing a single bullet. How fun or boring your experience will be comes down to your ability to experiment. I'm definitely not the type to figure out or even pull off the cool things you see on some of the YouTube channels out there with the Far Cry games, but I personally appreciate that these things are possible and that there's many different approaches that feel equally viable. Aside from some obvious issues we'll get into later, I absolutely adored Far Cry 3's narrative. From that opening sequence, I was glued to this story, to rescuing my friends scattered across the islands, to witnessing Jason's evolution from innocent kid to absolute killing machine. I especially appreciated how everyone around him seems to recognize how far gone Jason becomes, except him. His girlfriend Lisa recognizes he's having fun murdering pirates and calls him out for it. The moment when Jason announces that he's staying on the island hits like a train. Even me, the player, was like, Jason, dude, what are you thinking here? It truly did feel like I was playing a character whose moral standards degraded over time and reached rock bottom by the end. After I chose to go back with my friends at the end, Jason reflects and says,
I can't come back from this. I'm a monster. I can feel the anger inside me. But I am still somewhere inside me more than that. Better than that.
That shook me to my core. I mean, how the hell do you recover from an experience like this? And the answer is clear, you don't. I got so invested in this story, and looking back, it's for two key reasons. First, Far Cry 3 puts story first. It bashes you over the head with the narrative, and it's really good stuff. There are a stunning amount of cutscenes in this game by today's standards. Instead of drawn out dialogue options where I'm guiding the conversation but my choices really don't matter, these are pre-scripted narrative moments with handcrafted facial animation. You can tell this game came out in 2012, but for what it is, it looks good and the emotions are effective. Seeing these so often between every single mission had me hooked. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to see what happened next. It made me wish that more modern games kept to an authored, concise story, a narrative that's written before the game is even developed instead of a choose-your-own-adventure approach like we get in a lot of games. The next reason is the first-person cutscenes. Everything that happens on screen is shown from Jason's point of view. You never leave his perspective. To me, that is so vital to my connection to Jason and these characters. You get these ultra-personal, up-close interactions with every main character in the game. Because of that, it commits to a level of intimacy that feels raw and satisfying. My biggest issue with this story revolves around Voss and Hoyt. Voss, as brilliant as he is, just does not appear enough in the first two acts of this game. It's a shame because when he does show up, he makes it count. But I found myself missing his absurdly powerful presence more often than not. After you kill Voss, there's a real momentum shift that feels off. I mean, sure, I do want to kill Hoyt. He is Voss's boss, but he just doesn't compare in any measure. There are some incredible moments in the final act with Sam, who is just a lovable character. I love this guy. But from a narrative perspective, they just didn't pay off as much for me if I were hunting down Voss as I was doing all these things. I found myself fast traveling from mission to mission just to see the ending because I wasn't as invested. Now, I can't talk about this story without addressing the really vocal criticisms out there. The overall concept of Far Cry 3 is steeped in the white savior complex. If you're not familiar, this is not an exact definition, but that means it's about a white dude bro who swoops in and, whether justified in his situation or not, saves a native population for self-serving reasons. If you're paying attention to what happens in this game, I mean, that's it right there. Jason recognizes that the Rakyat need his help, and he is recruited by Dennis, but it's to save himself and his friends. That's his motivation. Ubisoft has responded to this, and the writers claim it was meant to be more satire to expose these goofy rich kids and put them through hell to prove a point. But man, I just don't think it works that way. Even if the game is trying to be ironic and do things differently, it still fits that mold. We can drill down into the details of how Citra grooms Jason to become a warrior for her people, for her own gains. We can dive into the evolution of Jason and how revenge consumes him, and how the Alice in Wonderland quotes mirror his descent into madness. That's all fine and well, but it doesn't change the circumstances, which are baked into the very concept of Far Cry 3. From where I stand, this is a story and a concept that just doesn't sit well in today's climate. And for that reason, it feels like a relic from the past that belongs in the past. It doesn't help that this game is obsessed with sex in the shallowest of ways. If I had $1 for every time I heard a guard say,
"Shit, it burns like a mother when I piss. Should have used a rubber."
I'd have probably only like $50, but you get the idea. It's over-sexualized to the point of feeling childish, like it was made for a teen boy, which I was when the game came out. I get that Far Cry wants to be this edgy franchise that pushes that boundary. It makes you uncomfortable. Ubisoft is kind of the king of that thing, and usually I'm the target audience for that, even in my 20s. But Far Cry 3 tips the balance a bit too far, where it hurts the more serious themes that it's trying to sell me. I mean, look at this.
You like what you see? You like what you see, I can tell.
Who is this for? Far Cry 3 has its issues, but ultimately, I found it really is that good. For me, it's easily an all-time great FPS open world experience. It has such clear focus on the things that matter, that are so impactful, fear and danger, and it captivated me from start to finish. It puts the story first, with tons of first-person cutscenes which compelled me to see Jason's journey through. Its combat feels like a playground with fun toys I can experiment with. And its villain, Voss, presents one of the most compelling antagonists in video games to date. I really hope Ubisoft looked at this game when designing Far Cry 6, because if that game comes close to the ideals that Far Cry 3 was built upon, it'll be a true return to form for this series. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by clicking the like button and subscribing to the channel. You can hit that bell too so you don't miss my next video. You can also follow me on social media. On Twitter, I'm at jayveeonYT, and Instagram, I'm at jayvee.yt for updates on all my content. If you want to chat more about Far Cry or any other game really, join our community Discord server over at discord.gg/jayveeonYT. Links for all of these are in the description below. Big thanks to my YouTube members, my Ultra fans Dave, Grass, Bill, and Cam. Super fans Tipsy Sergey, Tarl K, Ryan, and William. Fans John, Matthew, Spyro, JVO, Level 42, Joe, Bloodsky, and Kamal. And supporters Nos, Sung, Adam, Mr. Hollow, Quickness, Firkin, John, Jay, Sam, Abhishek, Ferris, and Report Them All for supporting the channel. If you want to support me further, click the join button below this video. In exchange for your support, you'll unlock custom badges, emotes, and monthly play streams with the community. Check the link below for more information. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.